My name is Chloe. I am 38 years old, and my world operates on precision. I am a forensic accountant, though these days, my title is freelance consultant. It sounds softer, more accommodating, which is what you are supposed to be when you have a 7-year-old son. Liam is my true north, the singular, non-negotiable fact of my life here in Phoenix. The high desert heat of Arizona is a demanding climate, but our home is an oasis of cool stone and filtered light. I traded my corner office for this, the ability to analyze spreadsheets from my home office while Liam practices his reading in the next room. It was supposed to be a balance, not a surrender. My husband, Marcus, is 40. Marcus does not balance, he conquers. He is a partner at Desert Edge Capital, one of the fastest rising venture capital firms in the state. He is all charisma and blinding white smiles, the kind of man who shakes hands and makes people feel chosen. Our life in Scottsdale is a testament to his success. It is the life we were meant to have: the sprawling contemporary house with a negative edge pool, the graphite gray German sedan next to the white electric SUV, the endless rotation of charity galas and cocktail parties where the air smells of expensive perfume and quiet, ruthless ambition. It is a perfect picture. I know it is perfect because I helped curate it. It began, as these things often do, with the mundane. It was a Tuesday night, late, close to 11 p.m. The house was silent except for the low hum of the air conditioning. Liam was asleep, and Marcus was supposedly at a late dinner with potential investors. I was in my office, preparing our quarterly tax estimates. This is my domain. I track our inflows, our outflows, our assets, our liabilities. Marcus handles the vision. I handle the reality. I was reconciling the statements from our joint brokerage account. It was routine, something I could do in my sleep. But I am paid to notice things others do not, and I noticed an anomaly. It was not a small rounding error. It was a wire transfer, a massive one, $2.5 million. The transfer was dated 3 weeks prior. The recipient was an entity I did not recognize. Helios Imports, LLC. My pulse did not quicken. Instead, a familiar, cold calm settled over me. This was just data. I waited until I heard the heavy front door open and close just after midnight. I waited until he had poured himself a glass of whiskey. I found him standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the illuminated pool. "Marcus," I said, keeping my voice level. "What is Helios Imports?" He turned, that easy smile already in place. "Still working. You are too diligent, Chloe. The transfer, $2.5 million, 3 weeks ago, from the joint brokerage?" He actually laughed, a short, dismissive puff of air. "Ah, that! You found it. I was trying to keep it a surprise." A surprise. "It is a golden opportunity, sweetheart. A special real estate deal down in Mexico, a beachfront property, untouched. We got in on the ground floor. I had to move fast, lock it in before anyone else caught the scent." Impeccable. Right. His charm was his primary weapon, and he wielded it with surgical skill. "I wanted to tell you when the papers were finalized," he continued, walking over, brushing my hair back. "Imagine it. Our own private escape." I let him kiss me goodnight. I let him fall asleep. I waited until 2 a.m. when the house was at its stillest. I went back to my office and closed the door. I did not bother with simple search engines. I went straight to the international corporate registries, the secure databases I still had access to, the ones that peel back the layers of shell corporations. Helios Imports. I searched, and I found it. Not in Mexico. It was a shell company, registered in the Cayman Islands. Its registered agent was a firm notorious for specializing in asset concealment. Its digital footprint was non-existent. Its purpose was opaque. It was a ghost, created for the sole purpose of making $2.5 million disappear. The beachfront property, the golden opportunity, the surprise. He had lied. I stared at the screen, but I was not seeing the registry data. I was seeing a pattern A history of small deceptions I had chosen to classify as privacy. The late dinners that always ran past midnight, the way he shielded his phone when he texted, the sudden business trips to conferences I had never heard of. I had ignored them because they did not affect the bottom line. They were emotional discrepancies, and I told myself I was above tracking those. But this was different. This was not the first time he had betrayed me. I knew that, deep down. But this was the first time he was stupid enough to do it using my money. This was the first time he left a financial trace, and I am very, very good at following traces. A secret audit of my own life. I could not touch the Cayman account directly. That was a black box, and attempting to breach it from my home network would be amateurish and loud. But Marcus, for all his cunning, was domestically lazy. He assumed his digital hygiene at home did not matter because he assumed I was no longer paying attention. He was wrong. I started with the shared household computer, the sleek iMac in the kitchen nook where we managed family calendars and Liam played educational games. I waited until Marcus left for the office, his usual confident stride, that kiss on my cheek that now felt like a deposit of ice. The moment the garage door closed, I was at work. I ran a deep data recovery scan, not a simple undelete. I was looking for the ghosts in the machine, the fragments of files he thought were long gone. It took 3 hours. While the progress bar crawled across the screen, I made Liam breakfast, packed his lunch for school, and kissed him goodbye at the bus stop, my smile never wavering. When I returned, the scan was complete. The deleted emails were the first to surface. Not from his primary account, but from a private webmail he must have used, fragments cached in the browser's memory. They were communications with an attorney, a name I recognized, a specialist in offshore asset protection based in Miami. They were discussing the final funding of Helios and the necessary firewalls against whom the answer was obvious. Me. Next, I moved to the cloud, our family's shared drive. It held years of our lives, videos of Liam's first steps, vacation photos, shared tax documents, and one folder I had never noticed before. It was not named Secret or Private. It was named DEC Archive 77. Corporate camouflage. It was encrypted. I tried the obvious passwords. Our anniversary. Liam's birthday. My birthday. His... nothing. The encryption was strong, but a password is a human weakness. It is a key to something the user values. What did Marcus value? I thought about his work. Desert Edge Capital. I thought about the recent flurry of social events, the new hires. There was one he had mentioned more than once, a young analyst who was, in his words, a total shark. Sienna. She was smart, ambitious, and, I had noted with a passing sting, only 26. I had seen her name on a company-wide email. I had seen her birthday listed in the new hire introductions. I typed in the date, month, day, year. The folder unlocked. My stomach did not drop. My hands did not shake. It was like confirming a complex equation. The logic was sound, and here was the proof. The contents were organized, just as I would have done. There were 2 subfolders. The first was titled Us. I clicked. Intimate photos. Dozens of them. Sienna and Marcus on a boat. Not in Mexico, but in Italy. Sienna and Marcus in a high-rise apartment I did not recognize. Champagne glasses raised. Sienna wearing a diamond tennis bracelet I had certainly never seen before. It was a visceral, personal betrayal, but it was not the main threat. I closed the Us folder and opened the second one, titled Logistics. This was his real betrayal. Here were the bank statements for Helios Imports. LLC. The $2.5 million had been the seed money. It was followed by 2 more transfers from other accounts I now realized he had hidden. The folder also contained a fully executed lease agreement for a penthouse in downtown Phoenix, the same one from the photographs. He was paying for it through the Shell Corporation. He was building a new life, funded by our shared one. Then I saw the file named Providence. It was a PDF scan, a new life insurance policy. I opened it. The policy was for $5 million. It was taken out on his own life, which was standard. I scanned for the beneficiary. It was not me. It was not Liam. The primary beneficiary was an irrevocable trust, one I had never heard of. The trust's managing entity, Helios Imports. He was not just planning to leave me. He was structuring his finances so that if anything happened to him, I would be left fighting a ghost entity in the Cayman Islands for our son's future. He was systematically, methodically erasing me from the equation. He was making me and Liam financially obsolete. The coldness of it was breathtaking. This was not a crime of passion. This was a meticulously planned execution. The last file was a scan of an application, a credit card, an American Express black card. The name on the card was mine, Chloe Ann Miller. The signature at the bottom was a passable, but obvious, forgery of my own. I had never applied for this card. I had never seen it. I pulled the associated statements. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in charges over the last 6 months. Jewelry. 5-star hotels in New York and London. Dinners that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. All spent on her. All under my name. He had not just committed adultery. He had committed fraud, identity theft, and he had used my good name, the name I had built my entire professional reputation on, as his cover. I closed the folder. I wiped my machine, clearing the cache, removing the recovery software, leaving no trace of my audit. The betrayal was no longer a dull ache. It was a bright, sharp, clarifying rage. He had made the biggest mistake of his life. He had forgotten what I do for a living. I did not have the luxury of grief. Grief is a passive emotion. I required action. I spent the next 48 hours in a state of cold, compressed focus. Marcus was, according to his calendar, in San Francisco for 2 days of partner meetings. While he was gone, I became the woman he had forgotten existed. I was methodical. I cloned the hard drives from his home office computer and the family iMac. I accessed his cloud accounts, this time downloading every file from the encrypted logistics folder. I documented the forged Amex application. I ran a full financial profile, tracing the 2 subsequent transfers he had made to Helios, totaling another $1.8 million. I compiled it all onto a single military-grade encrypted external hard drive. It was no bigger than my thumb. I put it in the zipper compartment of my purse. I packed a small overnight bag for myself and one for Liam, stowing them in the trunk of my car, parked in the garage. I did not sleep. I waited. He came home on Friday evening, just after 7 p.m. He walked into the kitchen, dropping his leather carry-on by the door. He looked relaxed, his skin carrying a healthy glow that you do not get from conference rooms in Northern California. He was humming, loosening his tie. "Chloe," he said, walking to the bar cart. "Long week. God, I need a drink." "I wouldn't," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the air. Liam was in his room, playing with his tablet before bed. The sound was off, headphones on. Marcus stopped, his hand hovering over a whiskey decanter. He turned to look at me. I was standing at the kitchen island. "Tough day with Liam?" he asked, his tone already laced with that familiar, patronizing edge. I slid 2 stacks of paper across the cool marble countertop. They were not the originals, just printouts. The first page on top was the bank statement for Helios Imports, LLC. The second was the declaration page for the $5 million life insurance policy that named a Cayman trust as the beneficiary. "Explain," I said. I watched his face. It was the most satisfying and most terrifying moment of my marriage. The mask did not just slip, it shattered. His smile froze, then collapsed. The color drained from his face, leaving his Cabo tan looking sallow and yellow. For 1 beautiful second, I saw pure animal panic in his eyes. "Where?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "Where did you get these?" "That is the wrong question. Marcus. The right question is why a shell corporation you control is the beneficiary of your life insurance instead of your son. Or perhaps, why you used my forged signature to open an unsecured line of credit. The panic was short-lived, like a cornered animal. It turned instantly to rage. "You spied on me," he hissed, stepping toward the island. "You went through my private files after everything I have given me or stolen from me." The arrogance returned, his last and most familiar defense. He straightened up, smoothing his shirt. He even managed a sneer. "Fine," he said. "You want the truth? Fine. Yes, I'm with Sienna, and I'm happy, genuinely happy. Something I haven't been in a very, very long time." "So you decided to commit fraud?" "I decided to protect my assets from you." "Look at yourself. Chloe, you are not the woman I married. You are a glorified bookkeeper. You are boring. You are sexless. You are a mother. And that is all you are. I built this entire life. I am Desert Edge Capital. I deserve to be happy. I deserve her." His words were meant to cut, to wound me, but they did not. They were just noise. The data was all that mattered. I picked up my phone from the counter. "I am going to get Liam. We are leaving. You will be hearing from my lawyer on Monday morning." I started to walk toward the hallway. He moved faster than I anticipated. He did not touch me, but he blocked the doorway, planting himself in the archway. His 6'2" frame filled the space. "You are not going anywhere," he said, his voice dangerously low. "You are not taking my son. He is not your son today, Marcus. Today, he is a liability you wrote out of your insurance policy. Now move." "You think you can just walk out?" He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You have nothing. You are a freelance accountant. Chloe, a stay-at-home mom playing on her laptop. I am worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I will bury you." He stepped closer, invading my space, forcing me to tilt my head back to look at him. "You walk out that door, and I promise you, you will regret this. You will not get 1 cent. I will drag you through the courts until you are begging for scraps. I will prove you are unstable. I will take Liam, and you will see him on supervised visitation, if you are lucky. When I am done with you," he sneered, "you will be auditing bake sales for the local church. You are nothing without me." I held his gaze. I felt nothing. No fear, no sadness, only clarity. He had forgotten. He had forgotten who I was before I was his wife. He had forgotten that I was the one who designed the financial systems he was now using. I looked straight into his eyes, my voice as cold and hard as the marble beneath my feet. "Is that a threat, Marcus, or is that a promise?" His sneer wavered, confusion flickering in his eyes. He did not know how to process that. I did not wait for his answer. I stepped back, turned, and walked through the living room, heading for the front door. "Chloe, I mean it. Don't you dare walk away from me." I grabbed my purse from the entry table. I hit the button for the garage door. I walked past the row of expensive cars and opened the door to my functional, boring, white SUV. "You will regret this," he screamed from the doorway to the garage. I started the engine. I backed out, not looking at him. I drove down the street. I turned the corner, and only when I was 2 blocks away did I pull over, take my first deep breath, and call my attorney. The war had begun. I did not drive to a hotel. Marcus was a man of patterns and control. He would immediately check the transaction logs on our joint credit cards, expecting me to seek the shallow comfort of a 5-star resort. I would be found in an hour. Instead, I drove to a quiet, unassuming residential street in central Phoenix, to an apartment building that was not listed on any map. It was a secure residence, a safe house. It was run by a small nonprofit I had done pro bono audit work for 2 years prior, an organization that specialized in helping victims of complex financial abuse. I had helped them structure their books. Now, they were helping me disappear. I paid the taxi that I had taken from a nearby gas station with cash, carried a sleeping Liam inside, and locked the reinforced door behind us. Once Liam was settled in a bed, confused but trusting, I made the call. It was past 10 p.m. on a Friday night. I did not call the top family law attorney in Scottsdale. Marcus had a team of those on retainer, ready to deploy the standard unstable wife narrative. He was expecting a fight over custody and alimony. He was preparing for the wrong war. I called Eleanor Vance. Eleanor was a name whispered with respect and fear in the corporate litigation world. She did not handle divorces. She handled hostile takeovers, securities fraud, and dismantling white-collar criminal enterprises. She was the person you hired when you wanted to annihilate an opponent financially. I had met her at a fundraiser 3 years ago, and she had given me her private cell number. She answered on the third ring. Her voice was gravelly. Vance. Eleanor, it's Chloe Miller. I need an emergency consultation. It's about my husband, and it's not a divorce. It's fraud. I met her at her downtown office at 7 a.m. on Saturday. The building was empty, the air still and cool. I did not cry. I did not get hysterical. I sat across from her polished mahogany desk and plugged the encrypted hard drive into her system. I presented my findings as if she were a client. The Helios Imports shell, the forged Amex Black Card application, the $1.8 million expenditure on the card, all billed to my name. The wire transfers totaling over $4.3 million. And finally, the $5 million life insurance policy. Eleanor listened, her expression unreadable. She reviewed the documents, her eyes moving quickly, absorbing the data. When I finished, she tented her fingers and stared at me. This is not a divorce. Chloe, she said, her voice sharp. This is a corporate dissolution. You are not his wife in this equation. You are his primary unsecured creditor, the one he just committed multiple felonies against. He's expecting me to file on Monday, I said. He threatened to ruin me, to leave me with nothing. He will try, Eleanor said, a thin, cold smile touching her lips. But he is a predictable creature. He thinks he has until Monday to move the rest of the liquid assets. We are not giving him that time. She was already typing. We are filing for an emergency, ex parte temporary restraining order, and a full asset freeze. We are not alleging irreconcilable differences. We are alleging fraud, embezzlement of marital funds, identity theft, and fraudulent conveyance. We will freeze every account he has access to before he even knows what hit him. There is one more thing, I said. The mistress, Sienna. She's 26. She's the beneficiary of the Amex. She is a complicit party. Eleanor nodded. We need leverage. My next call was to Frank Hollis. Frank was not the kind of private investigator who trailed cheating spouses with a long-lens camera. He was a retired senior agent from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. He found money. I hired him on the spot. I wanted to know everything about Sienna, from her real date of birth to every purchase she had made in the last 12 months. We filed the petition electronically at 8 a.m. sharp on Monday morning. We got lucky. The case was assigned to Judge Evelyn Reed. I knew her name. Marcus would not. Judge Reed was a formidable, no-nonsense jurist who had built her career in the Financial Crimes Division of the U.S. Attorney's Office. She was famous for her open contempt for wealthy litigants who tried to use shell games in their divorce proceedings. By 9:30 a.m., she had signed the order. It was a nuclear bomb. It froze every known brokerage account, checking account, savings account, and credit line associated with Marcus Miller, Desert Edge Capital, and, by name, me. Eleanor did not use a standard court server. She hired the best. He walked into the gleaming, glass-walled boardroom of Desert Edge Capital at exactly 11 a.m. Marcus was in the middle of his quarterly strategy presentation to the firm's partners and primary investors. The server walked right up to the head of the table. Marcus Miller. Marcus, annoyed by the interruption, looked up. I'm in a meeting. You are, the server said, dropping the 2-inch thick stack of documents onto the table in front of him. "You have been served." Public humiliation. The one weapon he could not defend against. My phone, which I had unblocked, began to explode. 7 missed calls from him in 60 seconds. Then the texts. "You fucking bitch. What did you do? You will regret this. I will destroy you." Then, exactly as Eleanor predicted, the panic. I watched the bank alerts come through on my phone. Transfer initiated $50,000 from joint checking. Status failed. Transfer initiated $200,000 from joint brokerage. Status failed. Credit card charge. $10,000. Status declined. He was locked out. The man who had threatened to leave me with nothing was, at this moment, worth nothing. I sat in the quiet safety of the apartment, Liam drawing a picture at the small table. I had won the first battle. But as I looked at the order, I knew the war was just beginning. The TRO was sweeping, but it was domestic. It could not touch Helios imports. It could not reach the Cayman Islands. He was trapped, but the $4.3 million he had already stolen was still out there, sitting in the dark. The call from Frank Hollis came 2 days later. I was sitting on the floor of the safe house apartment, building a tower of worn wooden blocks with Liam. Frank did not waste time with pleasantries. "Got your girl," he said, his voice like gravel. "Sienna. Except her last name is not Ryland, or whatever she is using at the firm. It is Croft. Sienna Croft." I froze. The block in my hand stopped midair. "Croft, as in Damien Croft. The one and only," Frank said. "Silicon Valley royalty. He is her father. She is his only heir, set to inherit an empire. She is not some 26-year-old analyst trying to make a name for herself. She is the name—" Suddenly, the entire narrative shifted. The air in the room felt thin. Damien Croft. He was the white whale. Marcus had been obsessed with him for the past year. Desert Edge Capital was trying to raise its 4th and largest fund, a massive $1 billion venture. Damien Croft was the target anchor investor, the one whose name and money would bring in all the others. "Sienna is not a gold digger," I whispered, more to myself than to Frank. "She is the gold mine." "There is more," Frank said. "I ran her financials, like you asked. She is clean, mostly. Trust fund, baby. But there is one transaction that stands out. A wire transfer. $2.5 million. It left her personal trust approximately 4 weeks ago." I closed my eyes. I did not need to check my hard drive. I knew the date. It was exactly 2 days before the same amount, $2.5 million, had appeared in our joint brokerage account, only to be instantly wired to Helios Imports. The blood in my veins turned to ice. I had been wrong. I had been so wrong. I had been looking at this like a wife. I assumed Marcus had stolen our money to buy her gifts, to fund their penthouse, to build a new life. But the money was not for her. The money was from her. "Frank," I said, my voice sharp, "I need you to look at something else. I am sending you a list of QSIP numbers, all early-stage investments made by Desert Edge Capital in the last 8 months. Cross-reference them with any known investments or public statements made by Damien Croft or his primary fund." "You got it," he said, and hung up. I hung up and stared at the wall. This was not about sex. The apartment. The forged credit card that was just camouflage. That was Marcus being sloppy and arrogant. The real story was infinitely larger. Why would Sienna Croft, an heiress worth billions, pay my husband $2.5 million? It was not a gift. It was a fee. My mind raced, my forensic accounting instincts taking over completely. I opened my encrypted files. I looked at the logistics folder. I looked at the dates of the trades Marcus had been so proud of. I did not need Frank's confirmation. I already knew what I would find. I started pulling the public filings for Damien Croft's investment arm. I cross-referenced the dates. There it was. In April. Croft's fund announced a massive $50 million Series A investment in a small, obscure biotech firm. The firm's valuation tripled overnight. I checked Desert Edge Capital's portfolio. They had bought a significant stake in the same firm 2 weeks before Croft's announcement. In July, a similar pattern. An AI logistics startup. Croft invested. Desert Edge had gotten in 3 weeks prior, at seed-level pricing. In September, a fintech company. The same story. Sienna was not just a 26-year-old analyst. She was her father's shadow, privy to his every move, every deal he was vetting, and she was leaking that information to her lover. Marcus was taking her insider tips and using Desert Edge Capital's $1 billion fund to front-run her father's investments. He was buying in cheap, knowing Croft's involvement would make the stock skyrocket, then claiming the profits as his own brilliant find. This was not just infidelity. This was massive, criminal insider trading, and the Helios Imports account. That was his payment. That was Sienna's consulting fee to Marcus, laundered from her trust fund, for the tips that were making them both rich. He was not just betraying me. He was betraying his partners at Desert Edge Capital. He was using their fund as his personal weapon, risking the entire firm, all for his own illegal side hustle. The penthouse, the jewelry, the vacations on my forged Amex, he was not even paying for it. He was letting Sienna pay for it with her father's money, and he was billing the rest to me. He had made one fatal, unforgivable mistake. He had gotten greedy, and he had gotten lazy. In his arrogance, he believed I was just a stay-at-home mom. He believed I was no longer the shark who had built my career on finding exactly these kinds of patterns. And so, to move the money from Sienna to his Cayman shell, he needed a temporary holding account. He chose our joint brokerage account. He had used a joint account with a senior forensic accountant to launder money from an insider trading scheme. I started to laugh. It was a cold, sharp, unfamiliar sound. Marcus thought he was playing a complex game of three-dimensional chess. He was not even on the board. He was an amateur, a sloppy, arrogant fool who had just handed me the weapon, the ammunition, and the firing pin. He had not just given me grounds for divorce. He had given me the SEC, the IRS, and the U.S. Attorney's Office. The temporary restraining order was a victory, but it was a limited one. It was a domestic shield. Eleanor and I both knew it could not pierce the corporate veil of the Cayman Islands. The $4.3 million in the Helios Imports account was, for all legal purposes, gone. The divorce court could not touch it. Marcus knew this. He was counting on it. His lawyers, a high-priced, aggressive team, were already filing motions to dissolve the asset freeze, claiming it was a hysterical overreach by a vindictive wife. They were burying us in discovery requests, demanding depositions, trying to bleed me dry. But discovery is a two-way street. They wanted my records. Fine. In return, the court ordered Marcus to produce his full financial disclosures. Every statement, every K-1, every partnership agreement from Desert Edge Capital for the last 5 years. His lawyers complied, but they did it with malicious intent, dumping over 50,000 pages of documents in a digital file, 90% of it irrelevant boilerplate. They thought they were burying me in paper. They had forgotten that paper is my home turf. I did not need to sleep. I had the encrypted hard drive, the safe house apartment, and a limitless supply of coffee. While Liam slept, I worked. I was not a wife looking for justice. I was a forensic accountant looking for a kill shot. I ignored the insider trading. That was for the SEC, a different battle. I was looking for something more personal, something that would hurt him now. I focused on the Desert Edge Capital internal reports. The firm operated multiple funds. Marcus, as a partner, had broad discretion over capital calls and management fees. I started comparing the partnership agreements, which outlined the fee structures, against the actual bank statements from the funds themselves. For 36 hours, I found nothing. His tracks were clean. The money moved where it was supposed to. And then I saw it. It was not a single, large transaction. It was a death by 1,000 cuts, a management fee here, a consulting expense there. Small amounts, relatively speaking, $20,000, $35,000. They were listed as payments to third-party vendors for due diligence and strategic advisory. But the vendor names were variations of the same LLC, one I had never seen before, registered in Delaware. I ran the LLC. The registered agent was the same Miami attorney who had set up Helios Imports. I cross-referenced the dates of these payments with his personal spending, the spending that was not on the forged Amex card, the payments for his Maserati lease. The down payment on the penthouse Sienna had paid the deposit, but he was paying the monthly rent, the $5,000 dinners he was expensing to the firm. He was not just living a lie. He was insolvent. Sienna's $2.5 million had not been enough. The insider trading was not paying out fast enough. His lifestyle, the one he claimed to have built, was a house of cards. To fund the gap, he had been systematically siphoning money directly from his own partner's capital funds. He was not just borrowing, he was embezzling. He was stealing from the very men who had made him. He had not just committed fraud against me. He had committed fraud against his entire firm. I did not stop to celebrate. I worked for another 12 hours, compiling the report. It was 40 pages long. It was not an allegation. It was a mathematical proof. I detailed every falsified invoice, every illegal wire transfer, every dollar he had stolen, traced from the partnership fund to his personal slush fund. It totaled just over $780,000 in 18 months. I sent the encrypted file to Eleanor at 4 a.m. She did not call me back. She did not email. At 9 a.m., her messenger arrived with a new, encrypted laptop and a note. Be at my office, Thursday, 10 a.m. Wear your best suit. When I arrived, Eleanor was not in her usual corner office. She was in the main boardroom, and she was not alone. David Stone, the senior managing partner of Desert Edge Capital, sat at the head of the table. With him were the other two senior partners. Their lawyers were present. Marcus was not. His lawyer was not. Chloe, Eleanor said, her voice formal. Thank you for coming. Mr. Chen and his partners were just reviewing your analysis. The air in the room was thick and cold. David Stone, a man I had known for a decade, a man who had been to my house for Christmas parties, looked at me as if he had never seen me before. His face was pale. Mrs. Miller, he said, his voice flat. This report, you are certain of this? I took my seat at the table. I am a forensic accountant. David. I am certain of the math. The bank statements are your own. The fee schedules are from your partnership agreements. The consulting LLC he paid is a shell. You have been defrauded. One of the other partners, a man named Roth, slammed his hand on the table. That son of a bitch. We trusted him. He was using firm capital to pay for his penthouse, I said quietly, letting the information land, and to cover his personal expenses, which, as my other evidence shows, he was incurring with his mistress while using my credit. David Stone held up a hand. He looked at Eleanor. What do you want? This is not a negotiation, Eleanor said, sliding a single sheet of paper across the table. This is a courtesy. Chloe is the victim of serial fraud, but you are also victims. That report, she gestured to my audit, is currently privileged. It is our work product. However, if Mr. Miller continues his scorched earth tactics in the divorce, we may be forced to introduce it as evidence of his character and his criminal conduct, which would, of course, make it public. Chen understood immediately. A public filing detailing how the partners of $1 billion VC fund had been duped by one of their own would destroy their reputation. Investors would flee. He is also, Eleanor continued, a flight risk. He has over $4 million in an unsecured offshore account. I suspect you will want to act quickly to secure your own capital. Chen stood up. He did not look at me again. He looked at his partners. Gentlemen, I believe we are done here. They filed out of the room, their faces like stone. Eleanor and I sat in the silent boardroom. 10 minutes passed. My phone vibrated. It was a new email alert, forwarded from Eleanor. It was an internal memo from David Stone to the entire staff of Desert Edge Capital. Effective immediately, Marcus Miller has been suspended from all duties at the firm, pending an internal investigation. All access to firm systems and premises is revoked. Please direct all inquiries to my office. His career was over. His name was Mud. He had lost his entire professional life in the span of a single meeting. One down, Eleanor said, closing her laptop. Now, let's go get the rest. Marcus was suspended. He was a pariah at his own firm. But that was only half the victory. His partners were launching their own audit, scrambling to contain the damage and claw back the $780,000 he had embezzled from them. They had no interest in helping me. My $4.3 million was still sitting in the Helios Imports account, insulated by Cayman law, untouchable by a domestic court order. Marcus was locked out of his salary, but he was still a millionaire, living off the money he had stolen from me. Eleanor warned me that a foreign asset recovery could take years, years of litigation, letters rogatory, and appeals. I did not have years. I had to take the ultimate risk. I had to go to the source of the rot. I left Liam in the secure care of the nonprofit, telling him I had to go on a short, important work trip. I took the first flight from Phoenix to San Francisco. I did not bring Eleanor. I did not bring a briefcase. I carried my purse, and in it, the encrypted hard drive. You cannot make an appointment for what I was about to do. You just have to show up. I walked into the lobby of Croft Tower, a 40-story monument to black glass and disruptive technology. I went to the penthouse floor, the private offices of Damien Croft, his executive assistant, a woman who looked like she ate diamonds for breakfast, tried to dismiss me. Mr. Croft is in a meeting. He does not take unscheduled appointments. Please give him this message, I said, my voice calm. My name is Chloe Miller. I am the wife of Marcus Miller of Desert Edge Capital. I have physical documentation proving your daughter's complicity in an SEC violation that directly involves your fund. I will wait 10 minutes before I forward that documentation to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I was in his office in 90 seconds. Damien Croft's office was the size of my entire house, overlooking the bay. But the man himself was not like Marcus. Marcus was a peacock, all charm and polished surfaces. Croft was a block of granite. He was in his late 60s, impeccably dressed, and radiated an aura of pure, cold, absolute power. He did not greet me. He just motioned to a chair. You have 5 minutes, he said. His voice was a low rumble. I won't need that long, I said. I did not plug my drive into his network. I took out my own ultralight laptop and opened the files. Mr. Croft, my husband is a thief and a fool. Unfortunately, he has entangled your daughter in his crimes. I showed him the Us folder first, the photos of Sienna and Marcus. He did not flinch. He looked bored. Personal indiscretions are a waste of my time. I agree, I said. I closed the folder. This is not... I opened my trade analysis. I showed him the side-by-side comparison, the dates of Desert Edge Capital's investments and the dates of his own fund's subsequent market-moving announcements. My husband has been front-running your investments for 8 months, using his firm's capital. Croft's expression did not change, but his eyes narrowed. An allegation? A fact, I said. And here is the proof of collusion. I showed him the wire transfer. $2.5 million, moving from Sienna's trust fund to our joint brokerage account. And here, I said, showing the next slide, is the money leaving my account 60 seconds later, wired to an offshore shell corporation in the Cayman Islands called Helios Imports. I finally had his attention. He was not looking at the screen. He was looking at me. He was not morally outraged. He was furious. She used her trust, he said, his voice quiet, which was far more terrifying than a yell. She wired $2.5 million to a domestic joint account. creating a permanent, traceable record. He looked away, disgusted. My daughter is a fool. He looked back at me. And your husband is worse. He used his wife, a forensic accountant, as the clearinghouse for an SEC violation. The stupidity. It is breathtaking. He was not angry about the crime. He was enraged by the sloppiness. He was insulted by the sheer amateurism that now threatened to bring the filth of an SEC investigation to his door. "What do you want?" he asked. This was the moment. Helios Imports currently holds $4.3 million. That money was stolen from my son and me. I want it back. You want me to intervene in a foreign bank. I want you to protect your empire, I said, my voice as cold as his. Right now, I am the only one who has this full picture. The SEC has not been notified. My husband's partners only know about the $780,000 he stole from them. They do not know about the insider trading. I leaned forward. I do not care about Sienna. I do not care about your fund. I want my money. You help me get it back, and this hard drive and all its contents disappears. My civil complaint against my husband will never mention Sienna Croft, Damian Croft, or insider trading. You have my word. He stared at me for a long time. I could see the calculations in his head. He was not assessing my character. He was assessing my value as a transaction. He despised Marcus for being an idiot, and he had a new, cold respect for me for being smart enough to corner him. He nodded, once. You have a deal, he said. He did not pick up his phone. He simply spoke to the air. Get me Julian on his cell. A moment passed. Julian, it's Damian Croft. I have a problem. An LLC registered in your jurisdiction. Helios Imports. It is the primary vehicle in a significant, multi-million-dollar U.S. securities fraud. It is an embarrassment. He listened. Yes. I need it locked. I need the account frozen, liquidated, and the assets transferred to a neutral holding account. I am sending you the details now. This is a threat to the integrity of your authority. I expect it to be handled quietly and immediately. He ended the call. He stood up. The meeting was over. The Cayman Islands Monetary Authority dislikes being used by amateurs like your husband, he said. The account will be frozen by morning. It will take my people approximately 72 hours to force the liquidation and transfer. They will contact your lawyer, Ms. Vance. I stood up and put my laptop back in my bag. Mr. Croft, I said. Mrs. Miller, he replied, turning to look out the window. See to it that your husband's destruction is as thorough as your presentation, and teach your son not to be a fool. My meeting with Damian Croft was on a Thursday. By Friday afternoon, the world had ended. It was not a slow collapse. It was a detonation. The dominoes did not just fall. They were pulverized. The first explosion came from Desert Edge Capital. The senior partner, the man I had met in Eleanor's boardroom, moved with the speed of a man protecting his own life. They held an emergency partners meeting. It must have been short. At 2 p.m., the official email went out. Marcus Miller was terminated, effective immediately, for gross misconduct and material breach of contract. But they did not just fire him, they buried him. His partners, his brothers, as he used to call them, invoked Section 4B of the partnership agreement, the ethics and morality clause. A clause I had flagged for him years ago as being dangerously vague. He had laughed it off. Now, it was the guillotine. It allowed them to revoke all his unvested shares and carried interest in the funds. Millions upon millions in future earnings, gone in the time it took to cast a vote. The second explosion came from San Francisco. Damian Croft, true to his word, moved to protect his empire. He did not need to be loud. He simply made concerned inquiries to a select few of his fellow anchor investors. He spoke of potential legal risks and weak internal controls he had discovered at Desert Edge Capital. He mentioned mismanagement that he found deeply troubling. The result was a bank run. Investors do not wait for proof. They flee at the smell of smoke. Capital calls were suspended. Redemption notices flooded in. The firm, which just days before had been the phoenix of Arizona venture capital, was now facing a catastrophic liquidity crisis. It was effectively paralyzed, on the verge of total collapse. The third explosion was personal. Damian Croft did not just warn investors, he dealt with his daughter. I received a call from Eleanor, Sienna Croft, facing the loss of her entire inheritance and the full, cold fury of her father, had folded completely. She was cooperating. She had already provided a sworn affidavit to Eleanor's team, detailing the entire insider trading scheme. She confirmed the cash for information arrangement, the penthouse, everything. She was trading her testimony against Marcus for my silence with the SEC, a deal I was happy to take. So, in the span of perhaps 24 hours, Marcus had lost his job, he had lost his reputation, he had lost his future earnings. He was now facing a massive civil suit from his former partners, who were coming after him for the $780,000 he had embezzled, plus damages. He was radioactive. His friends stopped answering his calls. His name was a curse. He had been locked out of every domestic account. He had no salary. He had no firm. He had no allies. Sienna was gone. His partners were now his enemies. I had Liam. He was utterly, completely isolated. He had only one thing left, one final lifeline, his escape plan, the one place he believed I could not touch, the one place he thought was secure. He still had his ghost. He still had Helios Imports. He still had that $2.5 million sitting in the dark in the Cayman Islands. It was all he had left in the world, and he was about to find out it was already gone. Marcus was a ghost in his own life, but he was not paralyzed. He knew where his last lifeline was. With every domestic asset frozen and his partners suing him for embezzlement, he did what any cornered animal would do. He ran for his stash. He must have felt a moment of relief, believing he was one step ahead. He still had his $4.3 million. He still had Helios. From a public computer, he tried to initiate the transfer. He was not going to leave the money in the Caymans. Not now. He was trying to move it to a new, truly anonymous account in Switzerland. He gave the wire order, and nothing happened. The transfer was rejected. He tried again. Rejected. He must have called the bank in Grand Cayman, his voice probably shaking with a rage and panic I wish I could have heard. He would have demanded, as Marcus always did, to speak to the manager. He would have told them who he was. He would have been met with a wall of polite, impenetrable, legal ice. Damian Croft's call had been a nuclear warhead. The Cayman Islands Monetary Authority, SEMA, has a reputation to protect. They despise two things: bad press and being used by sloppy high-profile American criminals. Croft had delivered both to their doorstep. He had not just asked for a favor. He had pointed out that a United States insider trading ring was using their jurisdiction as a laundromat. The bank, under Siema's immediate scrutiny, had flagged Helios Imports as a high-risk entity involved in suspected money laundering and securities fraud. They did not release the funds to me. That was never the plan. But they did not release them to Marcus, either. They froze the account internally, placing it in administrative suspension, pending a formal international court order. The ghost was in chains. Marcus would have been desperate. He would have called his new, high-priced civil lawyers, screaming. But his civil lawyers were useless. This was no longer a family court matter. Eleanor and I had been moving in parallel to all of this. My visit to Croft had been one prong of the attack. The other was far more permanent. A domestic asset freeze is a dam, Eleanor had explained to me in her office, 2 days before I even flew to San Francisco. A criminal asset seizure is a drain. We are going to drain the swamp. She had packaged my evidence, not the insider trading that was too complex and would entangle Sienna, violating my agreement with Croft. She packaged something much cleaner, much simpler, and much more brutal: the bank fraud, my forged signature on the American Express black card application, the identity theft, and the subsequent use of that card, and our joint brokerage account to move the proceeds of that fraud into the Helios Imports shell. This was not a marital dispute. It was a clear, actionable federal crime. Eleanor did not just threaten. She had a meeting. She presented this neat, undeniable package of evidence to an assistant United States attorney in the Financial Crimes Division. She attached my 40-page forensic report. She attached the forged application. She attached the wire transfer records showing the money moving from Sienna to me to Helios. Now, while Marcus was desperately trying to access his frozen Caribbean bank account, the real hammer fell. It was not a notice from the family court. It was a seizure warrant issued by a federal judge, executed by the Internal Revenue Service's Criminal Investigation Division. The IRS, working with the Department of Justice, filed a formal mutual legal assistance treaty request with the Cayman authorities. They were not asking for the money as part of a divorce. They were seizing the $4.3 million in the Helios Imports account as the proceeds of, and the instrumentality of, bank fraud and money laundering. The money was no longer marital property to be divided. It was evidence in a criminal case against United States v. Marcus Miller. The legal beauty of it was that the Cayman Bank, which was already terrified of being complicit, now had the perfect legal cover. They could cooperate fully with the United States Department of Justice, wash their hands of the entire mess, and maintain their reputation. Marcus received the notice via his civil attorneys, who I imagine must have read it in horror. They were divorce lawyers, not federal criminal defense attorneys. They were out of their league. I was at the safe house with Liam when Eleanor called. "It's done," she said. Her voice was as calm as if she were ordering lunch. "The U.S. Attorney's Office has filed. The seizure warrant is active. The Caymans are cooperating." "So, the money is gone," I said. "It is in federal custody," she corrected. "Which is better. We will get it back, Chloe. Not as a marital split, but as criminal restitution. You are no longer a litigant. You are the victim." A second later, my phone lit up. A new number. I did not answer. A text came through. It was Marcus. "You don't know what you have done. A criminal investigation. You are insane. You are destroying this family. Call me. We can fix this." Another text. "Chloe, please. They can put me in prison." I looked at the text. I thought about his words in my kitchen. "You will regret this. You will be auditing bake sales. You are nothing without me." I blocked his number. He was no longer my problem. He was the property of the United States government. The final meeting was not in a courtroom. It was in a soulless, beige conference room at his new criminal defense attorney's office. Marcus was there. He looked like a ghost. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his eyes were bloodshot, and the charisma had been replaced by a sour, defeated slump. He was a man facing financial ruin, multiple lawsuits, and a federal indictment. He had agreed to sign everything. There was nothing left to fight for. His lawyer, a man who looked like he was being paid by the hour in installments, pushed a stack of papers across the table. "Mr. Miller agrees to the terms," the lawyer said, his voice monotone. "Full physical and legal custody of the minor child, Liam Miller, to Mrs. Miller. The marital home in Scottsdale is to be transferred to Mrs. Miller's name, free and clear of any claim by Mr. Miller." A generous offer, given that the house was in foreclosure, as his partners had called in all his personal loans. Marcus had been silent, staring at the table, but he could not resist one last, pathetic show of power. He looked up, his eyes finding mine. He managed a small, bitter smirk. "You can have the house, Chloe," he said, his voice raspy. "You can have it all, but you know what you will never ever see. You will never see that $2.5 million. It is gone, locked in the Caymans forever. You beat me, fine, but I beat you out of that. You will never, ever get it." He sat back, a flicker of his old, arrogant self returning. He thought he had one final victory. Eleanor Vance, who had been sitting silently next to me, smiled. It was the first time I had ever seen her smile with genuine pleasure. "About that," she said, her voice cutting through the stale air. She reached into her leather briefcase and placed a single document on the table. It was not from the family court. It had the seal of the United States District Court. "You are right, Marcus," Eleanor said. "Chloe will never have to fight for that money in a domestic court. You made that unnecessary." Marcus and his lawyer leaned forward, confused. "You see," Eleanor continued, "when the Department of Justice and the IRS seized the contents of the Helios Imports account, they did so on the grounds of bank fraud. The fraud you committed using Chloe's forged signature. This made her the primary, direct, and named victim of the federal crime that generated those funds. The $4.3 million in that account was not marital property anymore. It was criminal restitution." I kept my eyes locked on Marcus. The U.S. Treasury, having recovered the funds, was legally obligated to make the victim whole. Eleanor finished. Marcus was shaking his head, not understanding. "What? No. It's seized. It's evidence." "It was evidence," I said. My voice was quiet. "It is not anymore." I looked down at my phone. I slid it, screen up, across the polished wood table. It stopped right in front of him. On the screen was a bank alert, received 10 minutes before this meeting began. A wire transfer notification. Received wire transfer from United States Treasury. Amount $4,300,000. I looked him dead in the eye. "You are right, Marcus. I will never see that $2.5 million. I will see this, $4.3 million. Minus legal fees. Of course. Thank you. You just funded our son's entire future." His face. I will never forget his face. The smirk, the confusion, the last shred of arrogance, it all evaporated. It was not anger. It was not sadness. It was the look of a man who had not just been beaten, but had been so completely and utterly dismantled, he no longer knew what was real. He stared at the phone, then at me, his mouth slightly open. He was a hollow shell. He had been outplayed, outthought, and outmaneuvered from the second he thought I was just a stay-at-home mom. I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. Eleanor gathered her papers. "I won't regret this," I said. I turned and walked out of the conference room. I did not look back. I left him sitting there, a broken man in a wrinkled suit, with nothing in his future but a plea bargain and, if he was lucky, a medium-security prison. I walked out into the Phoenix sunshine, took my first real breath of free air, and went to pick up my son. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to connect with all of you, so please comment below and let me know where in the world you are listening from and share your thoughts. Please subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and show your support by hitting that hype button so more people can hear this story.